Imagine this. You're at a huge event, camera everywhere, big names in the room, all eyes on you. The night is supposed to be about honoring veterans and heroes. The national anthem plays, the flag is flying, and then boom. A journalist stands up and calls you out in front of everyone. Isn't it time we move on from these outdated ideas of patriotism? The room goes silent, the tension thick. Karoline Leavitt, bold, fearless, a rising force in politics, clutches a folded American flag given to her family when her grandfather, a World War II veteran, passed away. Caitlin Clark, one of the biggest names in sports, stands on stage wearing a jacket that says, "Honor the Fallen." They could have played it safe, smiled, nodded, given a PR-friendly answer. But instead, they stood up and fought back. The media wasn't ready. The critics went nuts. Sponsors panicked. But the people? They saw the truth. What happened next turned into a national firestorm. And trust me, you do not want to miss how this played out. Let's break it down. But before we jump into the good stuff, take a quick second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. By joining our crew, you'll always be in the loop with the latest WNBA updates, expert takes, and breakdowns of big moves just like this. Don't miss out, we've got every angle covered. So hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive right in. Fast forward a few minutes, and the grand ballroom of the Washington Liberty Hotel is packed. The chandeliers cast a golden glow over the polished marble floors, and the energy in the room is electric. This was the American Honor Gala, an event dedicated to those who sacrifice for their country. The crowd included politicians, military officials, celebrities, and journalists, each waiting for the night's big moments. Conversations buzzed, glasses clinked, and camera flashes illuminated the room as people anticipated the speeches and presentations ahead. But at the heart of the evening were two women who had never expected to be at the center of a national firestorm: Karoline Leavitt and Caitlin Clark. Karoline, a rising star in politics, had made a name for herself by fiercely advocating for veterans and refusing to back down under political pressure. Her bold stance on national values had earned her both admiration and criticism, but she never wavered. Caitlin, on the other hand, was an athlete, one of the most celebrated basketball players of her generation. She had transcended sports, using her platform to support military families and fallen heroes, making her more than just a star on the court. She was an inspiration. As the event proceeded, the moment that everyone anticipated finally arrived. The room fell silent as the national anthem played. The crowd stood in unison, hands over their hearts. Some closed their eyes, others stood with quiet reverence. Karoline, seated in the front row, gently placed her hand over the folded American flag in her lap. That flag wasn't just a piece of cloth to her, it was a memory, a connection to her grandfather who had fought in World War II, a man who had served with pride. It was a reminder of sacrifice, of history, of family. Meanwhile, Caitlin stood on stage with the other honorees. She wore a special warm-up jacket embroidered with the words, "Honor the Fallen." It wasn't just fashion, it was a tribute, a small yet powerful way to acknowledge those who had given everything for the freedoms people often took for granted. Then, just as the final notes of the anthem faded into the air, the moment that would change everything happened. A well-known journalist, seated at the VIP table, suddenly stood. His voice, loud and deliberate, cut through the room, commanding attention. "Karoline, Caitlin, some say these symbols represent a past that divides rather than unites. In today's world, isn't it time we let go of these outdated ideas of patriotism?" The room froze. A few glances were exchanged. Some guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others leaned in, sensing that something big was about to unfold. The journalist's smirk widened, clearly believing he had just thrown them into an inescapable trap. The air in the ballroom was thick with anticipation. Cameras zoomed in, microphones adjusted. Every person in that room, and soon, the entire country was waiting to see how they would respond. And what happened next? Well, it was something no one expected. Without missing a beat, Karoline stood up, still holding the folded flag. Her face was calm, but her eyes, fierce. The room, which had been buzzing with whispers just moments ago, now fell into an almost eerie silence. You could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone. She took a deep breath and then spoke, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "This flag was handed to my grandfather's family as a final honor for his service. It is not outdated. It is not a political statement. It is a reminder of sacrifice, of duty, of the price that was paid so we could all be here tonight, freely speaking our minds. A hush fell over the audience, the power of her words lingering in the air. The journalist, still grinning, shrugged, attempting to brush off the significance of her response. "That's one way to look at it," he said, his tone laced with condescension. "But don't you think patriotism should be more about inclusivity than holding on to old symbols? Some say that clinging to things like that flag does more harm than good." Karoline didn't flinch. If anything, she stood even taller, her grip on the flag tightening slightly. Patriotism is not about exclusion. It's about respect. It's about honoring those who gave everything. If that's seen as a problem, maybe the real issue isn't the symbol, but how we've been taught to see it. A few scattered murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement, while others glanced at their phones, no doubt preparing to type out their hot takes on social media. The journalist wasn't done yet. He turned to Caitlin, hoping she'd take the bait. "You're an athlete, Caitlin. Your career depends on sponsorships, endorsements, public support. Do you really want to be caught up in something this polarizing?" Caitlin took a moment before responding. She had spent years handling media pressure, but this was different. This was personal. She stepped forward, her voice calm but unwavering. "I play basketball because I love the game," she said. "But I also love this country. I love the people who have given me the opportunity to play it. That's what this jacket represents. If that's controversial, maybe we need to ask why." Silence, then clapping, slow at first, then louder. A decorated veteran in the front row stood up, his voice strong despite his years. "I fought for this country. I lost friends for it. And when I see young people like them standing up for what they believe in, I don't see division, I see hope." That was all it took. The room erupted with applause. Some guests stood, clapping with conviction, while others exchanged uncertain glances, unsure how they should react. Some journalists typed furiously, eager to shape the narrative before the moment got away from them. But it didn't matter. Karoline and Caitlin had done what no one expected. They had refused to back down. "Whoa, you've made it this far. That must mean you're really enjoying the video, right? So why not take a quick second to hit that follow button? It's totally free, super simple, and helps us keep bringing you more awesome content, especially if you love the WNBA. Whether it's game highlights, player spotlights, or behind-the-scenes moments, we've got you covered. Plus, by following, you'll never miss a beat when it comes to your favorite teams and players. Go on, tap that follow now. All right, let's jump back in." Minutes later, social media was in absolute chaos. The media, completely divided. Some called them brave. Others accused them of being reckless. Major news outlets jumped in, running contrasting headlines. Some portrayed them as bold patriots standing up for their values, while others framed them as controversial figures stirring unnecessary division. Sponsors? They panicked. Contracts were reviewed. Statements were being drafted behind closed doors. Some companies immediately distanced themselves, not wanting to get caught in the crossfire of a media storm. Meanwhile, politicians who once stood beside Karoline and Caitlin now took a step back, trying to gauge public sentiment before making any statements. But then something unexpected happened. People saw through it. It wasn't just a handful of supporters speaking up, it was an overwhelming wave. Veterans spoke out, refusing to let their sacrifices be dismissed. Military families shared their stories, expressing gratitude for Karoline and Caitlin's stance. Athletes from all sports began weighing in, some cautiously, others more boldly, backing Caitlin's right to express her beliefs. Then came the moment that changed everything. A retired four-star general went on live television. His presence alone commanded respect, his words even more so. "I served this country for over 30 years. I lost friends in battle. And let me tell you something, when I see two young women stand up for what they believe in, I don't see division. I see courage." That clip? Instantly viral. The media scrambled. Some outlets that had originally criticized them quickly shifted their tone, realizing the public wasn't buying the manufactured outrage. Certain journalists quietly reworded their articles, softening their language. Commentators who had been harsh now hesitated, backpedaling on their earlier criticisms. And the sponsors? Some who had distanced themselves suddenly returned, reaching out with carefully worded reassurances, hoping to mend relationships before they lost a valuable brand ambassador. Others, however, doubled down on their decision, creating even more controversy around corporate influence over personal beliefs. Meanwhile, Caitlin stepped back onto the basketball court. The arena was packed, but this wasn't just any game. The atmosphere was electric. Would the crowd embrace her, or would she be met with cold indifference? Then the unexpected happened. The moment she was announced, the crowd erupted. Fans cheered. Chants echoed through the stadium. It was a standing ovation, louder than any she had ever received. She didn't need the media's approval. She had the people, and that was worth more than any headline. They had tried to cancel them, but they had only made them legends. At this point, the media had completely lost control of the narrative. They thought they could pressure Karoline and Caitlin into backing down, force them to issue apologies, and turn public opinion against them. Instead, the backlash turned into an unstoppable movement. People were fired up. They weren't just watching from the sidelines, they were actively pushing back. Hashtags supporting Karoline and Caitlin trended for days. Social media flooded with messages from veterans, military families, and everyday Americans who were tired of being told that patriotism was outdated. The overwhelming response made one thing clear. People weren't buying the media's spin anymore. Sponsors who had rushed to distance themselves in a knee-jerk reaction, they came crawling back. Press releases were issued attempting to clarify earlier statements. A few even tried to turn the situation into a PR opportunity, but the public wasn't fooled. Meanwhile, politicians who had initially hesitated, those who had either stayed silent or subtly distanced themselves, began to change their tune. Suddenly, they were praising Karoline and Caitlin for their courage. The shift was obvious. They saw where the people stood, and they didn't want to be on the losing side of the argument. Caitlin's next game? Not just a standing ovation, an arena-shaking roar of support. Fans held up homemade signs with messages like "Honor the Fallen" and "Patriotism is not controversial." Karoline's next speech? The venue was packed beyond capacity. The applause was deafening before she even spoke a single word. When she finally took the stage, she looked out at the sea of people who had come not just to hear her speak, but to take a stand alongside her. And the journalist who started it all? Well, let's just say his name wasn't trending anymore, but the impact of what he started? That was far from over. Wow, what a crazy story, right? They tried to cancel Karoline and Caitlin, but instead, they made them stronger than ever. This whole thing just goes to show that when you stand your ground, when you refuse to back down, people notice. And in the end, the truth always wins. But here's the real question: what do you think? Were Karoline and Caitlin right to stand up for what they believe in? Should patriotism still be celebrated the way it always has been? Or do you think times are changing? I want to hear what you have to say, so drop a comment below. Let's get this conversation going. And hey, if you're still here, that means you must have enjoyed the video, so why not make it official? Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We're bringing you all the latest stories, deep dives, and expert takes that you won't find anywhere else. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Oh, and one more thing: sharing is caring. If this video got you fired up, share it with your friends, post it on social media, send it to someone who needs to hear this. The more people see the truth, the harder it is for the media to twist the narrative. All right, that's it for now. I'll catch you in the next one.